first of all, we're talking about our worth, especially in the realm of business or whatever industry we women have decided to join. First off, based on your professional experiences or perspectives, what usually stops a woman from advancing in their chosen career, and how do we overcome that? Maybe we can start with you, Marie.
Let's start from, it can be cultural, it can be about religion. Usually what stops really is, culturally, they say that the primary reason why is always for you to have a family, and only as a second priority is your career or your job. But I think in my case, Lexi and Liz, it's really more for me is an end. It's not a matter of or. For me personally, it's about an end. And for me, that's the decision I made. And I was really very outspoken, even to my papa and to my mom. So everybody, and by the way, I'm the eldest among 7 siblings. So I'm the ate. And being the eldest and being, of course, I am really very outspoken. But it also comes with a lot of responsibilities. So basically, I think it's cultural. But if you believe that you can really be the person that you want to be the best version of yourself. And for me, as young as when I was 12, I said, this is what I want to be. So that's how it is, Lexi, for me.
Thanks a lot for that sharing, Marie, because I know that during my mom's time, my mom is one of 7 sisters and 1 brother. They were really prone to be housewives. I mean, this is, again, no bad words or thoughts against housewives, because that in itself is a task and a job that they often get unpaid for. But of course, we all do it out of love, right? But growing up, seeing that, I was like, I don't just want to be a housewife. Is this bad? Like, is that a bad thing to want more? When you said it's a cultural thing, really. I mean, women now, I think the millennials and Gen Zers have their tied together, so they know that they can go beyond that. But Reese, what are your thoughts on this?
I super agree with the both of you. There are so many reasons, right? But if I narrow it down, like what Marie mentioned, there are cultural and systemic things, and also practical things that are also hampered by cultural and systemic things. So let me explain a little bit more. In my experience, many women take a long pause from their careers when they get pregnant and take care of children. And for those who choose to do this for the long haul, as what you mentioned, Lexi, we're happy for them, because it's also not an easy decision to make, to manage the house and take care of children full time. And they go through also different kinds of social pressures and discrimination, because we really can't escape discrimination and social pressures, whatever our choices are. But for those who actually want to get back on track on their careers, they're practical, systemic, and also cultural barriers that are stopping them, I feel. So examples of practical reasons are recovering from childbirth, postpartum blues or postpartum depression that we hardly talk about, breastfeeding challenges, among others. So they're very practical because they're so connected to your body. Many of these can be augmented by maybe better policies on childcare or maternal care, but there are also cultural barriers that I have experienced myself. So like when I started going back to work after giving birth, I would still get questions about who's taking care of my kids. I'd say, simple, the iPad, the TV, whatever. But of course, it's not true. But I don't feel like answering those questions anymore because I'm so tired of juggling all of these different things. And some of them would even ask me if I feel bad about missing out on the milestones of my kids. All of these questions are unintentionally make me feel like less of a mom and less of a business leader all at the same time. So it gets exhausting, to be honest, to always explain myself. And it's also exhausting to mentally and physically juggle all the balls in the air and be careful that none of them will fall. How do we overcome these barriers? Oh my gosh, there are practical, systemic, and cultural solutions as well. But for practical, for example, we do need better policies on childcare and maternity care for both physical and mental well-being, because I think we hardly talk about mental well-being now. And we also gotta check our internalized sexism every time we get tempted to ask questions that are none of our business anyway, and only succeed in piling on the burden on women. And then
feelings. Just to add to that, Lexi and Reese, so diba, when you get married, and there's even this vow, the marriage vow says, wives, submit yourself to your own husbands as you to the Lord. When I was in that marriage vow, really? But I think it's about, you really have to come to your terms on what's really the interpretation of these marriage vows. When I got married, Jay, my husband, came also from a family of most of their wives really, even if they're, smart, they want their own career, they have to sit back. But the arrangement that we had is, for us to be successful is just really for you to allow me to be of what I would like to be, and that's to be a woman. I think just to share with you in AXA, we're just very fortunate in the AXA group. We also have this policy for parental leaves, like we are allowed 16 weeks of maternity leave and 4 weeks for the men. And I'm just fortunate. That's why I love, being a woman advocate in the workplace. Kasi that in itself has to be in the policy. That has to be also practice. So mabuhay ang mga babae. So that's how we are. So I think it's getting there. It's getting there.
I love how you say that, with AXA, at least you have all of these leaves, because like with me, I was so scared after a month that I would lose my job, because everyone,
True.
Industry is very tough. If you're gone, they can replace you instantly with someone who is ready and willing to go. So I was bumping with that breast pump in my boss's office. We're also talking about systemic change, right? That breast pump sound haunts me to this day. But anyway, a lot of us here are also still very young and perhaps not yet really mothers, but I promise you will want to look us up when you're going through these issues in your offices. Let's move on to the next question. We can go on and on about all of these wonderful stories, but studies show that women, despite being as ambitious as men, if not more, especially in this country, because I think with men, they're always told that they can do whatever they want. And with us, we really have to earn it. Having a difficult time talking about money or asking for a raise or promotion, which then hinders them from advancing. So what is your advice to women who want to be more confident and well-equipped with this type of discussion? To be honest, I've been in a company for so long, and I myself have never gone up to my bosses to ask for a raise. And I've been there for quite a while. So I would love to hear your thoughts. Maybe Reese, we start with you.
Yeah, sure. These questions are triggering me so much in a good way, because I get to share more things about experiences. But I guess it's a lifelong programming by society that as women, we have to wait. We have to wait for the man to make the first move. We have to wait for our turn. We have to wait for our husbands until they are ready. We have to wait for our partner until they are ready. And, don't get me wrong, there are times when waiting is good. And not just for women, but for men as well. But there are many times that we need to pursue things and ask for things. But the perception of the waiting and the proving yourself first before getting something is not just on us. It's a societal thing. It's systemic and cultural. And that's why it's so hard to break this barrier, because it's systemic and cultural. So my suggestion for those of you who are here today is to take it one step at a time. Kasi mahirap siyang pilitin kapag masyado nang na-program sa'yo. So you have to inch by inch do the work. Practice asking things for things internally first from allies and friends. So I think that helps. I think a discussion earlier with Bianca and Ayin is, you have a group and you could talk to them and you could sense check. It also applies to work things and to asking for things. You could practice with a group of people you trust. And it's also helpful to write things down and refining your ask, not to censor yourself, but to just get more comfortable with asking for things, even if it's just, writing things down first and then rehearsing it after and then getting more comfortable with it.
I think it's a Filipino trait to be bashful. Like we're always like, ay, siguro baka hindi, wag muna kasi maybe I'm not worth it or whatever. I don't know if it's a women thing or if it's a Filipino thing. Marie, what do you think? At AXA, do you see like men going up and asking for the raises and women not doing the same thing?
I've been in AXA for almost 16 years. And, in my 16 years, yes, it happens. Whether this is, men or women, this is my stand. And this is coming from my personal experience. If money or a promotion is actually your career goal, then for me, it's going to be really difficult. I'll find it difficult. When I became part of the leadership team, I said I would always want to be, what's really my why? Kasi when I entered insurance, it's just really because of a personal life event. It's about my father. Just to give you the story now. So my father was sold by an insurance agent. And that insurance agent was saying, "Sir, bumili ka na ng insurance kasi kailangan ko kasi ng commission." And I think, again, the intention was good because he wants to put, food on the table. But the point is, that he, sold it at the wrong time. So fast forward, unfortunately, my father was murdered. So we were 7, and I was 24, and my youngest was 12. And I said, wow, my mom was really crying. Lexi, I said, really crying because my father was the breadwinner. Though we had a business, my father was a lawyer. But the point is, I don't want this to happen to me. I don't want this to happen to my sisters. I don't want to be financially dependent. Then time comes in the late 1990s, the insurance industry was liberated in the Philippines. So I entered insurance and I said, this is where I want to be because I want to make sure I want to make a difference. And I entered insurance and I said, no, I won't stop until for me, I know insurance is something, it's being sold. Over 2 decades ago, ang hirap magbenta ng insurance. Kung magbebenta ka, talagang pahirapan yan. But ngayon, you really have to say, why are you selling insurance? So for me, it comes from the why. For me, when I was thinking that, I never thought I'd be in this role, being a leader, a woman leader. But because it comes from your why, I think that's a more important thing. So for me, what are my practical tips? Find your why. What's your intrinsic motivation? Be assertive. And again, also step up. Lexi, Reese, I tried to ask for my promotions twice, but I never stopped. I have to write, just like you, Reese. I have to write it. Why? And what's my worth? You also have not on the monetary, but what it brings you and what the company can also benefit from you. So I think that's how for you also, how do you get yourself to be worthy? Not maybe on the money, but also on the respect and the value that you give to the organization.
Well, that's the follow-up. That's the natural follow-up. How do you know what your worth is? Even with me, like how do you calculate? How do you say, you know what, I've been here for so and so years. I think I deserve this much. You feel like you deserve more, but how do you come up with a mathematical, scientific explanation to your boss to say, you know what, here it is. You cannot say no because it's in paper. Diba? Maybe Reese, we can hear from you. What do you think?
I'm an entrepreneur, so it's still similar because we price ourselves a lot when it comes to like product or services. So, I teach cash flow management sometimes, especially during the pandemic, because I knew that it was very important for a lot of people to understand. So most of the people who attend my sessions, they'd ask me about pricing and costing. Para siyang secret society. You don't know how to price yourself properly. I wouldn't mess around with it. It's really difficult depending on your industry and your space. If you're in corporate, I think mas madaling makita yung plantilla, there are levels, so you kind of understand the stepping stones. But if you're like, let's say, a freelancer and you are offering your services, photography or styling or graphic design, it's so difficult to understand or realize like, how do I price myself now? For me, the hack there is research, aka stalking a lot of people legally and in a non-creepy way on social media.
I hope so. I hope legally.
Chances are there are many people like you who are offering their services as well. And you could see their reviews online. You could see how much they are charging. And you could charge somewhere along those lines. It depends on, I guess, number of years of experiences that you've had. So it really depends on the industry that you are in. But it doesn't get easier. I don't know if it's a math or an art. I think it's both. I mean, if it's just math, honestly, ang dali. Like, I'd give you a formula right now, but it's not math. It's also like art and negotiation and culture and dami.
You kind of want to also not go in there with an amount that is so obscene that they'll actually just boot you out, right? You want to have a mix of humility, but strength and bravery to know that this is how much I'm worth. Let's move on to the next question, because if not, we're not going to finish these. I love all of the discussion points that you're both bringing up. Now, you did mention about money, and you also had sort of like a system that you were going by. With us Filipina women, what do you feel are our, I guess, shortcomings when it comes to managing our funds? Because, investment, it's not really for everybody. It can be, but it's maybe perhaps not top of mind. So what are some of the common mistakes that you've observed that women of Gen X, Gen Y, which is the millennial generation, and Gen Z who have started being in the workforce already, what are their common mistakes?
Maybe I'll start from my personal experience again. I grew up again on not really having a lot of money. I became an entrepreneur as early as 5 years old. I was in kindergarten. I was a provinciana. And I said, I saw my parents. We don't have enough. But I was selling, this chocolate. I'd buy chocolate in the Texas. And there I became entrepreneurial. In college, I was in LaSalle. Same thing then. My parents really not gave me extra money. So I used to buy these shoes. This store's shoes in Pagsanghan. It's called Step Right. It's the same supplier of a store here in Manila who would sell a lot of those flat shoes, yung ballet shoes. And, I will just add on, and for me, I'll just go to school. Every day I would really wear different colors. My classmates would buy. For me, I really got on. The problem that I had was for every money that I have, I spend it. And because I'm a fashionista, I always splurge. So it's a very emotional spending. So I realized until the time, I have money, but it's really how do I also set aside money for the rainy day? Usually, that's coming from me and my friends. Pag madami kang pera, you splurge. Pero pagka bukas, nakanganga ka. But I think the point is usually, I think when women become emotional, and then you also think about the today, but I think today is what they say, save for the rainy day, but also save for the sunny days, which means that when things are unexpected, then health more likely when you get sick. And now with COVID, you don't know. You set aside money for that. But when there are things also on the sunny days, you want to have to travel when things get better, for your retirement. And then also that's the sunny day. So I think that's for me is something that even kids today, young women, we have to teach that.
Well, exactly, because, I will put you in Gen X with me. Gen X is a very different generation. Gen Y, which is the millennials, again, there is no judgment on anyone's part. It's just a reality that they're very much about living in the moment. So they will work and then they will save up for an experience like travel or other things. So I think that investments or looking to the future, which is way in the future, is not necessarily always top of mind. For some, I don't want to generalize again because we're all here to lift each other up. Reese, what are your thoughts on that? Are you Gen X or are you a millennial?
I'm an older millennial. I researched using a library and using those cards. I made a lot of financial mistakes earlier when I was in college and then after college. Right after college, I didn't have like a house that I could go home to na. I have to live independently, pay for everything for myself. Kasi right after college, it's not like I could live with my parents. Very long story for another like novel or something. But essentially, I didn't live with my parents. I have to live alone. I have to pay for everything. I survived on cup noodles. I don't suggest you do the same. It's very unhealthy. But that's how I survived for the first few months and years of after college. But because I needed a lot of other things that I thought I needed, I got a credit card. And when you have a credit card and you are young, you don't really understand it so well. So during that time, I'm like, what? I have this much money? Girl, you don't. That's not your money. That's something that you're going to pay for. You just don't know it yet. For a while, I would just always pay the minimum amount due, which is like the biggest mistake that you could make because it's just like growing and growing until it got out of hand. So the first thing I did when I learned financial literacy by force is to pay that off in one go. I renegotiated, I asked friends or family for short-term loans that I could pay off. So talagang ni-restructure ko yung sarili kong debt when I was young. So I suggest for those who have credit cards, use it wisely. That's not free money. That's not your savings. That's just loans. So another, and Marie mentioned this earlier, save when you can. So that's so important so that you could secure your future. Savings are important. It doesn't sound fun, but it's actually very important. So I work in a community with artisans, right? And what we realize is when they start to have savings, that's the time they can actually plan for the future. Because if you're living on a day-to-day basis that you have to spend everything that you have right now, it's so hard to think about a future anymore. Because how are you going to save up for that house or for the education of your kids? I'd also say, so those of you who look really young here, secure your future with financial safety nets very early. Like please, get investments, get insurance, like right now when you're young and the premium is low, promise. Because I only got years ago, OM. And sayang,
Yeah.
sana I did it earlier.
In AXA kasi, we have this social responsibility. We call it the What's Your Game Plan. It's really for us training, especially in the local communities. You know, basic financial planning, how to save. It's for free. It's really the education that's really important. You're right
Super.
The only time that they can save is really when they can already get out of the, I have to get on the 3 meals a day. Pagkatapos nun, wala na
Exactly.
But again, just like you, entrepreneur, we hope that we can have more of that. So I think that's also part of your advocacy. I'm so inspired by you, Reese.
Ay, thank you, Marie. Ako rin, kasi you're doing so much for your community. And I actually didn't know that. I just learned that now. But it's important kasi the product itself that you're selling is already helping a lot of people. But you doing it for communities who don't have access to financial literacy or these kinds of financial tools, it's super important. Lalo na ngayon.
Yeah, especially when they get sick. Saan ka kukuha? Mangungutang yan So
it's a
even
cycle
mga...
of utang. Utang to pay
Right.
off your previous utang and then your utang again to pay off that utang.
And not for anything else, there is really very affordable insurance.
Right.
As low as 80 pesos. May ganon And I think we really have to educate them and make it accessible to them as well.
Who has thought about investments here? Because we all look very young. Show of hands. Thought of.
Sort of pala.
Okay, that's a good number. Now, who has actually already gotten insurance or has invested in something? Oh, there's a good number, and that's wonderful, because I think, I don't know with Gen X if we were like the credit card generation, as you know, you were saying. Now I think all of the other payment systems, like I just discovered, because it was really my lifeline during the pandemic. GCash, I just discovered it.
True.
I don't know why I only discovered it now. Like, it's just so easy. What you can do is sort of just like put an amount in there that you want to spend for things that will make you happy during the pandemic, because face it, we're all stuck in our homes and we need to also take care of our mental health. If you become a plantita during the pandemic and this is helping your mental health, go for it. But also know that there's a cap, diba? Because some plants are worth 60,000 pesos.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
And I will just kill them. That's my track record.
There are.
Can I add something?
Go, Reeds, go.
Sorry, go ahead. Just on the topic kasi of buying stuff, I'm an entrepreneur, right? So I've trained myself to have a producer mindset rather than a consumer mindset. So for example, instead of how can I buy it or where can I buy it, ask yourself, how can I make it? Or how can I achieve the same thing without spending a lot? So ang dami ko nang na-save na pera because of that thinking. Go producer mindset.
Yeah, and you know what? For me, what really also made me super happy during the pandemic is decluttering. I decluttered.
Ay, true.
And not only that, I sold. This is also another way to make money. Like if you'd like to buy, let's say, a new chair because your chair broke or whatever, you find things in your house that are... Facebook has a lot of these different groups that you can sell your items that you're not using anymore. Of course, naman don't sell yung mga may butas or anything like that. No? It's that entrepreneurial sort of mindset that you make money in ways that you didn't realize you could actually do.
Right. Or reallocate. Pre-COVID, we would always go out on weekends. How much do you have for your dinner? Diba? 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. So instead of that spending, allocate that amount that you did not spend to savings or investments. You can't put it anymore in the bank. Wala nang halos yan, interest. Invest your money. Yung sinabi rin ni Reese kanina, talagang you really have to think, where do you put your money?
Right. And think out of the box right now, because obviously with the pandemic, we all have gotten very creative. But we're moving on to the next question, because there was a study conducted by Oxfam, and it showed that women in the Philippines are twice as much more likely to shoulder household tasks during the pandemic, such as childcare, cooking, while also fulfilling their work responsibilities. Now, women are also expected that they will be primary carers of the sick, because obviously with the pandemic, we have a lot of people who transiently are sick in the home, or you'll have to find another home for them so that you don't stick, one person with COVID with the other person. I mean, it's just really become this game of balance and just keeping your head above water. So how can women who find themselves in this kind of situation ask for more balance or support from their partners or other members of the household? But I just have to say, my husband really supports. First of all, I don't cook. I can't even boil an egg. So he
Oh,
does
same,
all of
same.
the We're working girls, so
I can boil an egg though.
I'll make grilled cheese now. But how do you manage your partners? I just had to give him a shout out because he's really made my life very, very easy.
Very good training, Lexi.
But girls,
Yes.
if you fall in love, just make sure mother-in-law lives in Antarctica, okay? I'm just telling you, it will make your life 100% easier. Just saying.
I totally agree. But I love my mother-in-law,
Ako,
ha,
I
Lexi.
can't.
ah.
My mother-in-law is the best. So, iba-iba yata. But yeah, mine is super the best. So,
Well, 2 out of 3 is not bad. Let's answer the actual question. Okay, so how do you ask your partners? I guess a lot of women here could also potentially be not yet with partners. I show of hands who are married because you all look like child brides who are married. Okay, there's a good number, but there are also some that are obviously still just starting out in their jobs. Maybe they're home or with their parents or quarantining alone. And if you are quarantining alone, again, for mental health, please reach out to your friends, reach out to your family because it's a very tough time. Very tough. So please don't forget that. How do we ask our partners to be more helpful in the home? Marie, does your husband cook?
You know, for me, it was easy. He doesn't cook. I'm a very domesticated person. But I think in the household chores kasi, so imagine 24/7, it's very clear. He's the carpenter, he's the tubero, he's the painter, he's my techie guy, even the one putting this. So I think that's one. For us kasi, even my girls, kasi my girls, they all know how to do chores. May duties kami. But because there is also for us, negotiable and non-negotiable. So when you are with your family or with your spouse or partner, even your parents or siblings, what's your non-negotiable? For us, kasi as a family, even before COVID, a non-negotiable is really going to church together. So even in the house, you know, we have that time set, and that's every Saturday at 6 o'clock. And that 6 o'clock for us is sacred. Even if you're in your jammies, we have to go to mass together. And after that, we have dinner together. So just like the practice pre-COVID, we do that. And when we have the meals together every Saturday evening after mass, is no gadgets. And it's about conversation. Then after that is the negotiable. You know, you can have your boyfriend. So one of my daughters, my boyfriend. And go ahead, you can chit-chat until, midnight. But there's also a chore for each one of us. I'm just lucky that, all my girls and my husband all have, agreed. And even my manang. My manang also has her own me time. It's important too, but my manang too in the house. Kasi imagine, dati wala ako sa house eh. Ngayon, I'm here 24/7, over a year. Oh my gosh, my ate is home. But I think for me, it's also the respect that we give to each other at home.
Exactly. And Reese, maybe you can talk to the ones maybe who have house partners or housemates, because a lot of them are not married. Because it's really about sharing responsibility, whether it be you're living with your folks, maybe you're the one that's not helping out, maybe you can help out. Or if, like, let's say your mother, I'm not techie at all. So my daughter is the tech person in my life talaga. Like you, Marie, it's your husband. With me, it's my 15-year-old daughter. So I make sure not to abuse her because, you kind of want everyone to also do their part at home. So what would your advice be, Reese?
First of all, help out with joy, especially towards those who, are seniors at home, who are super bored already, who can't go out. So if they need help with Zoom, they need help with TikTok, wow, nag-TikTok sila. But go lang, turuan nyo. So I think, help out with joy is very important because these are the moments that we will remember for the rest of our lives. Like, we'll go back to this time and realize that we had so much time with the people we love, and we don't know if at that point in time they're still with us. So treasure this time as much as you can. But I want to take this opportunity to also give some advice, especially for those who don't have partners yet, because you can hear us, like Lexi and Marie, and actually me, my husband is also super supportive. Like, we work together so well. I also don't cook. I don't take care of plants. It's very difficult for me to keep plants alive. But we make our relationship work because we know our tasks and we do it together. And no task is beneath us. So I think walang ganon na parang, oh, that's beneath me or that's beneath me. Nothing is beneath anyone. So for those who don't have partners yet, don't just look for the looks, diba? So hindi lang siya abs, it's not just the guitar skills, it's not just the height. Wala yan lahat, promise. Because at the end of the day, you want somebody who will be with you while you are leaking everywhere because you're breastfeeding and you don't feel pretty and you feel so tired. And he or she will just be there with you to support you and to be your partner. So think about that. Iba yung non-negotiables natin. Dati kasi I had a checklist for like a partner in life and it looked nothing like my husband. But I'm very happy that I didn't stick to my checklist na parang at least 5'11", at least ganyan. My gosh. Oh my
I'm sure
gosh.
gwapo naman ang asawa mo, Reese.
Of course. Oo, yun dati kasi gusto ko sobrang galing kumanta eh. My husband is super tone deaf, but it doesn't matter. Kasi he's not the one.
I told myself I would never end up with someone who carries a handkerchief because I found that to be old school, old fashioned. And guess what? My husband always has a handkerchief and it is the most it's so useful. It's super useful. Grabe.
Just now I recall kasi why I chose my husband to be, kasi I saw him or I knew that he would take Sundays with his mom in the wet market. So sa akin, importante on how you treat your mom. Ito ba talaga marunong tong mag-alaga ng nanay? Marunong ba to mag-alaga? And he check on how he treats women in his life.
Well, you know what? Actually, there's also a very good question. I think the whole point of Reese and Marie is to just find someone who is kind, or even those who are not wanting to end up with anybody, because there are people
you
like
don't
that.
Have to. Really,
exactly.
You don't have to. Yeah.
So thank you so much for bringing up that point, because
Yeah.
it is true that all of us have our own sort of choices in life that we manage, and I think the main point or takeaway should be, if you're going to end up with someone who is kind and who is willing to really be your partner through life, because life is, it gets difficult a lot of the time.
But also, you don't need a partner to be complete. Like, don't ever get pressured by people who are asking you every Christmas party, kailan ka mag-aasawa, kailan ka
Ay, totoo.
Whatever. Don't.
Totoo.
Or even about children, because sometimes you're dog mommy and it's okay, or cat mommy, right? I mean, we Filipinos have the best intentions, but a lot of times we're nosy. So you do you, and whatever you pick up that is relevant to whatever path you want to go on in this conversation, please take it, because we're only giving you advice with the best of intentions. Now, finally, the last question, or the last few questions, what is your advice for women who are currently unhappy with their jobs? Because I'm sure that a lot of us have gotten stuck in our jobs. Not me, but some of us feel very stuck because, well, there's no movement really right now, if at all, or maybe some layoffs have happened as well. And what should the next step be for a lot of these, bright young women who, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, have cut their work lives short, or pivoted to online, which is also very difficult. Maybe, Reese, we can start with you.
Yeah. I actually won't assume that I know your situation, because all of us have different situations, right? But if you do have a job right now and you feel unhappy, I can't also give you the advice of quitting, because not a lot of people have the privilege enough to quit and pursue something they love. I cannot say that. That's gonna be very irresponsible of me. So, but if you need the job, you need it, diba? But the hacks that you can do instead is to take happiness breaks. Yun yung na-realize ko. Because even me, I already love my job. But even if I love my job, I still have meh days. Ganun talaga. No job is easy. My happiness breaks, and wow, maisingit ko lang, is that I watch BTS videos like a few minutes a day. Promise, minutes lang siya. Okay. And
oh my God, K-pop has entered the building. Ito na tayo. I'm sure, show of hands, who is K-obsessed? Anything K, raise your hand.
Yeah.
or do this.
Super.
Oh my gosh, it's not the majority. I am in shock.
They're just finding the buttons.
Baka nga.
Walang madaling trabaho eh. So, in fact, the work that you love will still be heartbreaking, probably even more. So my suggestion is to just always take breaks when you can. And it doesn't have to be long vacations, lalo na ngayon that we can't go anywhere. But identify the things that bring you joy. And if you could do that a few minutes a day, I think that will, pwede ka maitawid until your next adventure.
Yeah, well said. Like for me in the corporate, I think usually, why are you unhappy? And maybe Reese, you're right. Maybe it's just a burnout. And that time also, if it's just a burnout, take a break. Kasi now, even work from home, people thought it would be much easier. Oh, wow, because I'm home. No, it's not true. The flexibility of the work from home seems to be abused too. So for me, take a break kasi burnout yan eh. But you also have to know your boundaries. And you're right. Give yourself that pleasure too. Take a break.
Wonderful advice. Now, finally, what would be your parting shot to all of these women and about women who, because I am guilty of it, if you haven't heard of the imposter syndrome, it's a psychological term that makes you feel that you are a cheater or a liar, or let's say you're in news. I'll be like, oh no, I don't know what's happening. I don't even know why I'm saying the news because I don't have a grip on things. Or like, let's say you're a baker, but then you compare yourself to everyone else and say, oh, mine is not good. So that's what the imposter syndrome is. So what would you tell women to make them believe that they are who they are and they are good enough? Because we're talking about #embracing our worth, right? So Marie, maybe we can start with you.
For me, it's just face the mirror every morning and you say you're beautiful. I think you really have to believe in what you have and never compare yourself with anybody. And every day for me, it's just practically, every day, I know you one thing that you would like to learn or what you want to be better of today. Just that. I think that's where you can already start on believing that you're better than yesterday.
That's really nice. I love that. Reese, your final thoughts? It looks like you're ruminating there. What are you going to say?
One of the things that really baffles me is how amazing women suffer from imposter syndrome, while many people who have more destructive messages of hate and ignorance are just so confident. Like, pwede bang sila na lang yung may imposter syndrome? But seriously though, I think imposter syndrome is a syndrome affecting those who are not imposters, but those who are trying so hard to improve. That's why they feel that they're not yet enough, that they're not yet there. So reframe it. You belong here. The imposter syndrome will pop up still once in a while or often, but if you can, use it for self-improvement, but don't let it paralyze you because sometimes it's paralyzing. Parang, ay, hindi pala ako to. I'm just gonna stop. Don't stop. It may look like a roadblock, like many things, but use it as a stepping stone instead. So be on a constant path towards getting better, like what Marie said.
Beautiful, Reese.
Beautiful. See, now Marie, you can turn it into a mug, and we can use that for our to remind ourselves, right? I wish we could talk so much longer, but I think that there are other things happening as well. Can we have a round of applause for Reese Fernandez Ruiz, and of course, Miss Marie Raimundo. And thank you so much to AXA Philippines who helped make the She Talks Asia 2021 Summit possible. Thank you so much for being our trusted partners in elevating women's voices and uplifting communities. This has been Lexi Schultz. It has been such a pleasure to talk to Reese and Marie and to hear all the insights as well from everybody here. Have a great afternoon.